Every time you look at your to-do list, you're having to make a decision, and now your brain, more gas is taken out of it. So by the end of the day, you're in full decision fatigue mode. Your brain can't make good choices. And this often ties into why at the end of the day, we hit the pantry and make bad health choices as well. It's not because you don't have willpower. It's your brain is done. You've maxed it out. It's in full-on decision fatigue. And when we are in decision fatigue, our brain can't be rational. And it goes to its job when it feels that way is to give you a dopamine hit.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm Jenn, your host and health coach, here with you every week for wellness without the weirdness, as one podcast critic described us. So often people ask me how I know what to talk about. And people will often send me messages saying, that episode was exactly what I needed to hear. How did you know? And the answer to all of that is, you are my typical client, and I get it. I will also say that one of the top challenges or maybe excuses that I hear is, I don't have the time, or there isn't enough time in the day. And while some of us have figured out certain things, right, each season can bring a change of schedules, and life always throws us curveballs because, life. So I figured there's no better time, pun intended, than now to talk about time management. And there's no better person to talk about it with us than this week's guest. Let me introduce you. She's a former corporate techie turned entrepreneur. As a business owner, mom, and wife, she knows exactly how hard it is to juggle all the things while still maintaining your own sense of self and purpose. When her daughter was born in 2010, life as she knew it completely changed. After struggling to manage work, motherhood, and family, she began to set about a new way to manage her time and organize her calendar. She took her 20-plus year career in systems and processes and applied it to one of her favorite things, time management. As a time management expert for women seeking work and life harmony, she teaches specific strategies to help women get on top of their time, calendar, and goals while getting rid of stress, overwhelm, and exhaustion. Her proprietary planning approach is the only feminine planning system that works from the bottom up. Her courses and planner teach exactly how to plan your weeks and days to maximize productivity efficiently while still allowing for flexibility and downtime. We had a wonderful conversation on her podcast, the Work and Life Harmony podcast. Now she's here on Salad with a Side of Fries. Please help me welcome Megan Sumrell.
Oh, thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this because this has been a good refresher for me because I am in a season of life where I am wanting to default to that, putting my health stuff on the back burner because it feels like I don't have enough time. So I'm like, I love that we're talking about this today.
Oh, this is so perfect. And it's so funny because our instinct is to put this stuff on the back burner, like you just said. But the truth is, there's no better time to keep it at the forefront because it helps us do everything else that we have to do.
Yes.
I know. All right.
100%.
Totally. We're going to get into it really quick because I think it actually almost is like a tangent to what we're talking about today. On your show, we talked about guilt and breaking free from guilt. So that episode is the Work-Life Harmony podcast, which aired November 21st, 2023. So everybody go have a listen to that. And then let's tell our members what they're getting this week. I'm so excited. There's so many goodies.
So I have a coupon code for the planner that I have built and use every single day. And what's really nice is it's available in physical form, but also digital and printable. So if you are someone that isn't comfortable doing all of your planning in like a Google or iCal, I invite you to go check it out.
Amazing. So you're getting $20 off from Megan's Planner Shop. Your recipe this week is for Parmesan tahini kale salad with breadcrumbs and crunchy chickpeas. It's the perfect salad for the change of seasons. It is so satisfying, the crunch and the flavors. It's like a restaurant in your own kitchen. And then, I know it's so good. I'm like, I might have to make it right now. And then since it's March, the last month of the quarter, it's time for your quarterly live Q&A session. So as requested, it will be a one-on-one. So in your email on Friday, you'll be able to select a time that's convenient for you so we can chat, just you and me. So if you want this recipe, $20 off from Megan's Planner Shop or a one-on-one with me, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool, extra discounts from me and our guests and partners like today, plus access to live Q&A sessions like this month. It really is a total deal. This month alone, you're going to save more than the cost of the year with that one-on-one. So really, when you take advantage of the full offerings, it's a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, being a member supports this podcast and this community so that we can continue to bring you new episodes and experts every week. So remember, all you have to do is go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes because that's a lot easier. Once you're there, you click support now, enter your email and payment info, click subscribe, and you're all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the Parmesan tahini kale salad with breadcrumbs and crunchy chickpeas, $20 off from Megan's Planner Shop, and your quarterly live Q&A, just a one-on-one, just you and me. Okay, Megan, all about you. You spent like 30 years working in IT for corporate America. Is that where you really figured out all the time management hacks for productivity?
So, no. I started learning the baseline skills that I've used to apply to the time management framework I've built. And I do want to just put a little caveat. Everything I teach is actually not a hack. I don't like the word hack when it comes to time management because a hack to me is like a short-term fix, a quick win, where what I'm looking for is sustainable, lifelong systems and processes that you'll be able to use through all stages of life.
Love it.
So in my corporate career, I would essentially go into software teams and throw away every tool that they were using, how they were getting their software built, and redesign those processes so that they could do it better, faster, cheaper. And through that, I have a ton of certifications. I went through a lot of courses that ultimately taught me not only some pragmatic skills, but a lot of the brain science behind why we procrastinate, why estimating is hard, prioritization, all of this. And I had been using my own time management system for years as a single woman that served me very well. And it was taught by men. And when I found myself suddenly in a position of being married and a mom and juggling career and motherhood and everything, I kept going, why isn't this working? Like, I've been so good at this for 20 years. It's not serving me anymore. And I realized the inputs of my life had changed so much that the planning system I used didn't support those changes, nor did they support the add of technology into our lives. So I finally had my light bulb moment of, this is what you do for a living, Megan. Why don't you take yourself on as a client? So I did that. I threw everything out, the planner I'd used for over 20 years, my style of planning, everything, and said, let's treat this as I would going into another organization. So I created a completely different system for planning, managing, and controlling my calendar. And it has now been turned into a complete framework that I teach others how to use as well.
I love what you're saying because I think we've all been there. And, that idea of like, why isn't this thing that worked for me no longer working or working anymore? I know that frustration, right? And that feeling of failure that I think comes.
You instantly go to what's wrong with me.
Right.
There was nothing wrong with me. The tool I was using did not support the realities of my life anymore.
Yeah. So why aren't those traditional time management systems serving us? Like, what are the faults in those, so to speak?
So there's a couple things. One is there's three key reasons, and some I know are fact, some are my theory here, but I have yet to have it disproved. One is around, again, I mentioned technology. The time management system I was taught, almost 30 years ago, hasn't really changed over the last 30 years when I see how it's still being taught. And 30 years ago, there were no cell phones. You didn't bring a laptop home from work, right? We were not accessible and we did not have information coming at us. We had to turn on a TV or turn on a radio to have that or answer a landline phone call. Well, now, thanks to technology, we have information so easily accessible, but it also means stuff is coming at us 24/7 through our mobile devices, computers, et cetera. And traditional time management systems aren't acknowledging that and then providing the tools to say, how do we take this information coming at us and then figure out how to organize it, what we keep, what we throw away, what we make sure doesn't even interrupt us. And so that alone, that one thing is completely disrupting so many lives. Another thing that's really playing into this for women specifically is we just have increased roles and responsibilities from what lifestyle was for most women 30, 40 years ago, right? Women today are working more than ever. They're juggling households and careers. They're starting businesses, all of that. And so the kind of old school, women's management systems were assuming more of that 1950s lifestyle, which is not what women are living today at all. And then finally, and this is something really subtle, is time management systems specifically taught by men. While the tools are great, they're failing to acknowledge the fact that women tend to carry an emotional load and responsibility, whether you're a mom or not. We tend to be the emotional caregivers for the people in our lives, our children, our parents, our sisters, or whatever. And if we don't have a tool that's acknowledging that, like for instance, when I sit down to plan my week versus my husband, he's not thinking about, oh, it's flu season. What if she's sick sometime this week? How do I make sure I'm not overbooking myself in case I have a sick kid, right? That's not going through their thought processes, whereas it's going through mine. And so I need a planning system that's going to support a lot of unpredictability and be very flexible.
I love that. And I think considering all of the elements, and so often, as with our health, we go in sort of like with this myopic view of our own expectations of ourselves or how things, quote unquote, should be. One of the things that's maybe a prerequisite before we get into some really tangible things to do is kind of a relationship with time, right? First of all, what is a relationship to time? How do we identify that? And then how do we shift it? What do we want it to be?
I think a great way to think about this is I use a lot of analogies back to money, right? Because there's so much similarities with how we plan and manage, control our money, with how we plan, manage, and control our time. And if we are always thinking about our relationship with time as it is a fixed resource, it's not like you get 32 hours and I only got 12 this week or whatever. But our relationship with time tends to be one of always fearful and scarcity. There's not enough. And we have a very stressed and tense relationship with our time instead of having one where we feel in control of it. And so this is why I want to educate people on your calendar can't control you. You need to learn how to control it. And when we're controlling our calendar, guess what goes away? This constant feeling of, I don't have enough time for, right? Because when we're in control, that means we're deciding how we're spending our time, what we're saying yes to, when we're doing it, and we have really good boundaries with that.
Yeah. It's so easier said than done.
100%. Right? I get that, but it is possible.
Yeah. And is that part of, maybe I'm sort of jumping ahead into these tangible tools, but like allotting so that we don't feel guilty when we have that downtime.
Yeah. When someone asked me the other day on a coaching call, they're like, do you ever just like binge watch or relax? And I was like, yeah, as a matter of fact, last Sunday, I watched 5 hours of a show that I wanted to catch up on my couch. And guess what? I did it guilt-free because of the way I plan and manage my time. And so when we have that relationship with time, it means we don't feel guilty doing things for ourselves. We're not constantly feeling less than, and we're not in a perpetual state of hustle and exhaustion.
Yeah. And one of the things that I experience as I've sort of shifted how I manage my time and what I'm working on and what my days look like, I have some weeks where it is spot on and amazing. And even though something might be, a packed day and I have a lot going on, I'm like, it's all going to get done. It's fine. And I'm going to sit here and watch this show and it's not a big deal. And then there's other weeks where I'm feeling like exactly what you said, a little bit of that, like can't catch up, the hustle, the thing. So what do you say to the person who's sort of floating between these two scenarios?
Yeah. And that's very realistic and very, very, very common. And so at the heart of everything that I'm teaching when it comes to time management, and I think this really helps when we're also constantly saying, I don't have enough time for the things health-wise that are important for us, is being very realistic and crystal clear on how much time we have at any given moment. And it's not as obvious as one thinks. So for instance, and again, I'm going to use the money analogy. If I were to say to you, like, how much discretionary funds do you have in the bank right now? You might go look at your bank account and see, I've got $500, but it's not as clean cut as that, because you may have $500 in the bank, but you also may have 3 bills coming up this month or this week that you know are already going to claim 300 of that 500, which means you really only have $200 in the bank. So when it comes to our time, we need to have a planning system that is showing us how much time do I truly have available this week once I am recognizing and clearly seeing what are the things on my calendar that are already taking withdrawals of my time out. And for most people, the tool that they use is they go look at maybe their Google Calendar or something like that to see what appointments do I have for the week, doctors, dentists, recording this podcast, whatever. But that's the only thing reflected on their calendar. And so their calendar is going to look like I've got so much time. But when they layer in all of the tasks that they do on a recurring basis every week, driving to appointments, maybe picking your kid to school and back, all of that, what looked like maybe you had 20 hours of free time in reality might only be 10. And so when I see people shuffling back and forth between, oh, this was a good week, oh, this wasn't, oh, this was good, oh, this wasn't, that's usually because they don't have a planning tool that clearly shows them at every given time how much of your time is already spoken for to know what do I realistically have to work with. Because when we can see that, now we're not getting overbooked. Now we're not getting overscheduled. And part of that time that's already spoken for should include not just have tos for other people, but the things important for you. Like for me, that includes the days of the week that I go running. So we get to include all the things that support a harmonious, healthy lifestyle in there.
I love it. I can't wait to get into all the tangible tools. Really quick, let's take a break for our partner for this episode, and then we're going to come back with exactly how to do all the things that you're recommending. Big thanks to Lumiere de Vie Skincare for supporting Salad with a Side of Fries. Lumiere de Vie Skincare was founded by Amber Ridinger McLaughlin in response to her own experience of mere marginal results from countless costly creams. She realized the revitalization of her youthful skin could only occur if she developed products herself. Working closely with beauty scientists and exploring the most advanced ingredients derived from the earth and sea, Amber created Lumiere de Vie, the next generation of skincare. The extensive line of luxury skincare products is designed to address all skin types and concerns, with the highest quality natural ingredients and powerful formulas that help heal, soothe, moisturize, and protect. Lumiere de Vie acts as first aid for your skin. The result, rejuvenated, luminous, beautiful-looking skin. So as we're talking about time this week, I want to say I know the feeling of just wanting to go to bed and not wash your face, right? But that honestly happens to me less often because I love my Lumiere de Vie skincare. Really, it's like I look forward to those couple minutes in the morning and the evening. The easiest place to start is with the Skincare Value Kit. It gives you the cleanser, toner, and moisturizer for just $125. The men's kit is $90. It is truly a tremendous value for the ingredients in these products. And then I also love the intensive hand and body cream, which is just $34.95. And because you're a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off your order plus free shipping. Simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word SKIN, SKIN, to 844-947-4846 to try Lumiere de Vie skincare at 10% off and free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Megan, I geek out on the science side. Talk to us a little bit about like the brain science and the physical science of all of this and why you don't love a to-do list, because I love a to-do list.
And okay, so first of all, I'm not a list hater. There's a time and a place for a list. Okay. I mean, I don't go to the grocery store without a list of what I'm going to buy. But most people are operating today from that calendar we talked about that just has appointments, which usually involves somebody else. And then next to it, this massive list of things that they're going to get done. And very rarely do they get done. And then we're rewriting it the next day and so on and so forth. What's subtly happening here is when we make a long list, maybe there's even only 10 things on it. Most people have more than that. And you're operating from that list all day long. Anytime your brain is looking at even if it's visual, looking at a collection of things and you're asking it to make a choice, you're asking it to make a decision. And so every time you look at your list, you're saying, okay, there's 12 things here. What should I do next? And the more there is for your brain to sort through, the more it's pulling from your energy stores for the day. And I'm sure people here are used to heard of the phrase decision fatigue. Well, operating from a to-do list keeps you in a daily state of decision fatigue. So every time you look at your to-do list, you're having to make a decision, and now your brain, more gas is taken out of it. So by the end of the day, you're in full decision fatigue mode. Your brain can't make good choices. And this often ties into why at the end of the day, we hit the pantry and make bad health choices as well. It's not because you don't have willpower. It's not because you're not a good person. It's your brain is done. You've maxed it out. It's in full on decision fatigue. And when we are in decision fatigue, our brain can't be rational, and it goes to its job when it feels that way is to give you a dopamine hit. That's what our body's wired to do. I'm anxious. I'm stressed out. I need to go make my body feel good. So we make choices that, might give a quick little dopamine hit, but they aren't actually serving us very well. So if we're operating in daily list making mode, we are every day going, I'm going to deplete my energy levels. I'm going to deplete my energy levels. And we rarely get the opportunity to work on long-term projects because your brain is looking at something going, okay, I only have today. This is too big of a project. I can't start on it. You're going to get some stuff done. I'm not saying you won't get things done, but you're going to be exhausted. You aren't going to maximize your efficiencies, and you are rarely going to make progress on your bigger projects and goals.
I love that you put it that way, because as you were talking, I'm like, this is 100% all about willpower, right? Everybody go back to the episode, Willpower Won't Power, where we talked about how every choice and every moment that requires decision-making depletes our willpower. And so if we aren't doing the things throughout the day that replenish that, of course we feel like the end of the day is like climbing Mount Everest naked and barefoot. So as we're saying this, what's going through my mind is helping everybody put some of those things into their day that replenishes that willpower, in addition to removing this extra decision fatigue that's drinking up the willpower.
Yeah. And so it's interesting. There was a book I read that was saying you can't actually, and I don't know if this is true or not, you can't, quote, replenish willpower. The only way to do that is like sleep. But what we can do is make sure we're not maxing it out and tapping it out at the end of every day, right? So when we build in time for ourselves every day to do the things that restore our energy levels, that, refill our cup, so to speak, whatever that looks like, that helps our overall like equilibrium. But then when we learn how to plan a week at a time instead of this daily task list, we're no longer asking our brain to tell us, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to do next? Instead, we go and look at our plan and go, oh, here's what my plan is telling me I'm doing next. So it's kind of like having, think of a map. If you have the whole route mapped out and you can plug it into your car and your car is going, take a left here, take a right here, instead of every 50 feet, what's my next turn? Where do I need to go? Like, how stressful is that to think about driving somewhere as opposed to knowing how you're going to get there? And then someone's just giving you directions, reminding you, little reminders the whole way of how you mapped out to get there. And that's what a plan is going to serve for you.
Okay, so I want to talk about, because you just mentioned weekly planning versus daily planning, but yes. I want to ask first about a calendar audit, because this actually came up in a business coaching call that I was on yesterday. And is that our best place to start to sort of get a sense of where we are?
So with my students, I start everybody on a weekly time audit, but that's one tool to help you. It's not to feel bad about yourself and go, oh, I spent all. No, it's a learning tool to help us look for patterns and to help us understand how much of our life is spent in rapid fire context switching and where we can glean some possible efficiencies. So a time audit is a great tool if you know how to analyze it the right way and pull out the information that you need to. But what I'd love to be able to share is a quick way. One of the things I start people with is called a basic 5-step weekly planning process. Great. But you can even get a quicker step or a big win with just 2 steps, which will change a lot of how you're thinking about your plan. So I want to share that with you. So it kind of gives people a place to start with. So again, we're going to be talking about planning at a week. Now, before we talk about that, I have to make sure you all understand. I realize, because it never happens in my life, I'd like to do my planning on Sundays. When I plan out my week for the following week, very rarely does it get executed exactly as I planned because life, right? I don't know what I don't know. I don't know that I'm going to get that phone call on Tuesday or that my car is going to break down on Wednesday. But what's really powerful with this planning system is one of the things you're looking for in your time audit is this: how much of my time on average each week is spent dealing with things I had no idea was coming, but had to be dealt with in that week. Ooh. And I call this planning for uncertainty. And it's different for everybody, and it's different in different seasons of life. I happen to be in a season of life right now where it's a little on the less side. 6 months ago, I had a lot. So I know right now that about 4 hours of my week for work time each week is going to be taken by things I don't know about when I'm creating my plan for the week. So guess what? I build that in, meaning I block off 4 random hours on my calendar, knowing that I'm seeing, okay, those 4 hours are gone. I don't know what they're going to be yet, but we actually layer that in. So I just wanted to bring that up because I know everyone's like, how can I plan for a week when I don't know what's going to happen on Wednesday?
Wait, I want to ask a follow-up question on that.
Yeah.
Best practice as to when to put those in. So for example, in my mind, even thinking about my week last week, there were a bunch of things that came up at 9 a.m. on Wednesday that, I was like, I didn't necessarily have time to deal with them in that moment. Does it make sense to then put those times at like 3 or 4 o'clock where you're giving time in the day for those things to show up? Does it make
So it's going to depend on each individual person. So for instance, I've had stages of life where I have needed to block 90 minutes every day because things were happening every day that needed to be addressed in that day. Right now, my time audit is showing that's very rare. I just know on average, it's going to be about 4 hours. So your time audit will help you discover if you see a pattern of it's happening every single day and they're have tos, then yeah, I would, try maybe not. You could either block it in the morning to address the day befores or towards the end of the day. But the idea is you're actually creating the appointment on your calendar to block off that time. Then let's say you blocked off Monday at, from 10 to 11, but Monday morning, 10 o'clock hits and you don't have any of those. Well, because you've done a weekly plan, you get to look ahead and say, what have I planned for this week that I can now do now? So basically, you're swapping out that hour with something else. So maybe you had planned to, write a blog post, or maybe you had planned to do some recipe, searching or whatever. You can say, guess what? That hour I blocked, I don't have anything that's come up. So I'm going to swap it out with something else I've planned to spend time on this week that I can do right now. And basically, I'm going to move those two. I'm going to swap those 2 hours. So you're still protecting that time because you're still going, something's going to come up. I don't know what, but you get to massage it and move it as your week goes. So that way, maybe you've planned for things on Monday and Tuesday, some blank time. You didn't need them. Maybe you were able to do some stuff that you'd planned for Wednesday instead, and now you're able to accommodate that on Wednesday. So how it looks is going to be, I was at a stage of life once where I would just keep my Friday mornings clear, and that worked. That doesn't work for me now because usually there's stuff I have to get done before Friday that's going to come up at the beginning of the week.
Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Okay, keep going with your 5 steps.
That's a really great question. All right. So the very first step with weekly planning, and most everyone probably already has this. So guess what? You're one step ahead. Like, how fantastic. And it is acknowledging what are you already committed to? Meaning, what appointments do you already have? And most of us already have those captured somewhere, whether it's in a planner or a Google Calendar, right? So things you've already said yes to at specific dates and times. Those are the first thing that goes into our plan. Now, the second thing is something very new. And it's what most people don't have. And this is why we get overbooked and overscheduled. And if you just add in this second one alone, it's going to be very transformative for you. And it's what I call acknowledging our unavailable time or our busy being busy time, meaning you're awake, you are in motion, you are doing things that need to get done for the day. But none of them are things that live on a traditional to-do list or, a project management tool or something like that. So for example, in the morning, I am really in motion from 5:30 to 8:30 in the morning. Nothing on my list of things that I want to get done is getting done then. But what is getting done is the dogs are getting walked, they're getting fed, breakfast is being made, lunch boxes are being packed, driving to school. These are all things that wouldn't live on my to-do list because they're routine. They're happening on autopilot, but they're not in my calendar, right? Because this is what I do every morning. And we all have different pockets of time. I also have a chunk of time every afternoon, kind of the post-school to pre-dinner where there's stuff going on. I never know what it's going to be, but I know I shouldn't pretend that I'm going to get important things done there. Well, most of us aren't layering that into our calendar. And so if I just looked at my appointments for the week, I might see, okay, I've got 10 hours of my time, already spoken for. But when I layer in my unavailable time, now I'm going, oh, I actually have 23 hours of my time already spoken for. And so when we actually block that in our calendar, now we're getting that realistic view of, okay, maybe I don't have as much time as I thought I did. And so that's why we put that in second, because again, we need to acknowledge I'm not actually going to be getting anything done there. Now, the third part of this is very different than what most people are used to doing at this point. And now is when we get to schedule time for ourselves, right? For the things that fill us up. We're not in service to others. And again, this gets to look like whatever you need it to look like. So for me, I practice my cello every day for 30 minutes. That brings me joy. It's 100% for me. It's not in service to anyone else. It might be lunch with a friend. It might be time to read. It gets to be getting the exercise in that you want. And this actually goes into your calendar as well, so that you're visually seeing, here's another withdrawal of my time for the week. And that gets prioritized before the last two steps, which is step 4 is what are all the recurring things that I do every single week? And then step 5 is, are there any kind of one-time projects that I'm working on? And now how do I find the time to get those put into my calendar as well?
I love this process and this step-by-step approach of how we're putting things in our calendar. And one of the things that's occurring to me is that the challenge I see most often when I hear from people, I don't have enough time. It's often because we're trying to push the meal prep, the exercise time, whatever that looks like, into the same hours that you blocked of your 5:30 to 8:30 in the morning without adjusting that time.
Yes. Or we're just going, oh, I'll do it when I have free time, right? We just I'll do that after dinner. Well, can you? Does your calendar actually support that? How many of us just have gobs of free time? So anything that feels like this is something I'll do just for me, or if I just have time, right? If we're not capturing all of that information on our calendar, we always think we have more time than we do. So if we fool ourselves into thinking, oh, I'm going to do the meal prep or the this or that. Oh, every afternoon we're home. Well, if you're acknowledging, yeah, but 99% of the time I get pulled into things to help with my kids or this or that. Now we need to take a step back and look at our calendar and say, okay, realistically, when can I get this done? Because my calendar is showing me I'm not going to do it in the time I think I am. But most of us aren't capturing all of the realities of our life into our plan for the week to help us see that, no, we actually don't have, that is not the good time for us to do it. So now we get to take a step back and say, okay, well, then what am I going to change up? How do I want to move things around? And instead of just going, well, I guess I can't get it done. Now we get to take control of making those decisions of maybe we say no to something. Maybe we change this one thing, from this time over to that time. Maybe we get help from other members of our family or outsource or things like that to support us with that.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I've noticed because I've also shifted into more of this time blocking, where instead of creating the to-do list on a separate piece of paper, I'm blocking the time in my calendar to do the task. So it's in there. I don't have to think about it anymore.
Absolutely.
What is our best approach to being realistic about how long things take? Because I think that's the other thing of even going to work out. If it's not in our home, there's commute time. There's all these other things that I think we aren't allotting.
Yeah. And there's two parts of this. So one is if it's an activity that you've done before or you're doing regularly, again, this is where that time audit comes into play. So all of the things that I do that live on my kind of recurring checklist, okay, every week I need to make sure I'm planning for, these 15 things. Next to them is, and here's how long they take, because I've timed myself to know how long they take. And it cracks me up because one of the things I do is I write something every week. And every time I see that, I'm like, oh, I can knock that out in 20 minutes. Yet every time I see it on the top, it goes plan for 45 minutes, Megan. So that way, when we track and use our time audit to tell us how long the things that we've done before take, we can plan for them. So I encourage people, write down how long the thing took the last time you did it so that you get to plan for it accordingly. I love that you brought up, whether you work out in home or out of home. So I have a weekly cello lesson. On paper, my cello lesson is 45 minutes. On my calendar, I block off an hour and a half because I have to go upstairs and pack it all up. Then I have to drive there. Then I have my lesson. Then I drive home. Then I'd like a hot minute to go to the bathroom maybe and get a cup of water, right? So my cello lesson that for some people might have 45 minutes on their calendar, for me, it's an hour and a half that's blocked off every week on my calendar. So that's, for the things that we do regularly that we know about, we get to time them and then use that knowledge in our plan. Now, we also have things that maybe we've never done before, right? And so we don't know how long they will take. My best piece of advice is, if possible, ask someone who's done it before, right? Hey, how long did it take you? I see you're wanting to go paint your, kitchen, or I see you're wanting to actually sit down and menu plan for the week. Find someone that does it and say, how long do you spend doing it? Because I might think, oh, I could knock that out in 10 minutes. And then someone goes, you know what? By the time I walk through all these steps, it takes me about 45 minutes. Well, now I have a better starting point, and you can always use Google, right? You can find a lot of information out of searching it as well. But the worst thing we can do is trust our gut instinct on that, because it's always going to give us like a much more optimistic view than what usually happens realistically.
Okay, last question before our rapid fire. How do we stick to this? Is it between boundaries and going back to that willpower thing, right? How do we stick to it without feeling like we're in trouble, right? And we're confined to these times
Well, first, again, your plan does not confine you. It supports the goals that you have in your life, right? So even the example I gave of, I keep 4 hours where nobody gets to take it for the week, but I get to move them around, right? So my plan is my outline. That is, at this moment in time, this is how I believe I'm going to get from Monday to Sunday next week. I might hit a detour on the way. I might have to reroute, and I'm totally fine with that. So remember, this is not to shove you into something that doesn't support. We want to be able to create a plan that builds in flexibility. Now, how we stick to it is because it serves us all week long. So what do I mean by that? Well, on Monday, all of a sudden I start to panic because I'm like, oh my God, I've got this big, like this week, I have this big presentation on Friday. Oh my gosh, I want to make sure I have time to practice in this and that. And I start to go into panic mode. And then I look at my plan that I made for the week and I go, it's okay, Megan. You have time on Wednesday on your calendar already planned to sit down and do your final preparations, right? So I get to, and then in that moment, I'm like, oh, and I'm training my brain. I've got this covered. We're good. You don't need to stress out about this right now. So because the plan is something, you don't build it and then put it in a book and close it. It sits out where you see it all week long. It serves you on what you say yes to, what you say no to. And then at the end of every day, when you get to look back and go, oh, here are the things I planned to do. Here's what I got done. Here's what I had to change. It's like it's a built-in self-rewarding system. It's not a, no, Megan, you don't get to do this right now. It's a, hey, Megan, here's how you thought you were going to get through the week because here's what you mapped out that was important for you to do this week.
I love it. And I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like after everybody goes to implement, I think we might have to have you back to continue the conversation. And
the 5 steps that I shared today, again, there's a lot of planning inputs that we learn to make that go really quick. But once we learn the 5-step process, then folks graduate to the advanced weekly planning, which is a 10-step process. But I do this in 15 minutes or less every single week. So this isn't now I got to clear 4 hours of my life to create my plan. No, when you learn how to organize all the information, namely everything that's competing for your time in a way that when you sit down to plan, you can see, here's what's relevant for this week. It makes the process really, really quick and easy.
I love it. All right. Are you ready for our rapid fire off topic questions? Okay.
Let's do it.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
The best thing I've done for my health this week, we actually just introduced a second dog into our life a couple months ago. And I was struggling to find the time to get back out and run, which is like my favorite thing to do with our older dog. And so the best thing I did for myself was we sent our puppy to a trainer and she's back home now. And so I have been able to get out in the morning with my older dog and just go for a run together. And that brings me great joy.
I love it. And the naughtiest thing?
I stopped by Crumble Cookies yesterday.
Oh, they're so good though.
My favorite cookie, I've only ever had it once, is out this week. So I'm like, well, I gotta go. It's the donut, the old-fashioned donut cookie. So I ate a Crumble cookie.
Nice. If you weren't a techie and productivity expert, what would you do?
Well, I'll tell you now, I don't know if I'd actually be able to do it, but I'm like, if I were back in my teens again, I think I would have pursued a career in acting.
I could see it. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise, or you could give us a fiction book.
Gosh. Well, and I would not say habit building is an area of my expertise. I'm really good at planning, but the book Atomic Habits is one I read every year. I think everyone can benefit from that book.
If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Breast cancer.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Like the one I desire to have?
Yeah.
I would want to be able to fly.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
People who aren't on time. Making me wait really puts me in a bad mood.
All right, last one. In your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
I think in busting down, just because I'm going through this right now, I've hit full menopause. I'm no longer in perimenopause, and I'm seeing a lot more conversation around this. And I think there is a wide open frontier on wellness in menopause, realistic wellness in menopause for women.
100%. Well, Megan, thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, your podcast, everything.
Yeah. So as you mentioned before, the podcast is called Work-Life Harmony. It's on all the podcast players. So lots of time management tips there. I'm easy to find out on social media. It's just Megan Sumrell. And I've got a kind of lengthier video training where I teach some very specific time management skills. If you're interested in checking that out, you can go to theworklifeharmony.com and get signed up and I'll shoot the video your way.
Amazing. Well, thank you again. Just appreciate your expertise, your energy, and helping us all through this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, friends. And in anticipation of your nutrition nugget on Friday, we are talking about the Atlantic diet. So this was popping up all over social media and in tons of articles all throughout February. And I was seeing it. Then my team told me that March 11th is debunking day. So I figured, let's take what's popular right now and talk about it. If we need to debunk it, we will. So tune in on Friday for this week's nutrition nugget. Be sure wherever you're listening, you can click the plus sign or the follow button, and then your app will alert you when the nutrition nugget goes live on Friday morning at 3 a.m. Eastern. Well, as always, everybody, I'm your coach and your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram or all social media. I'm at Jenn Trepeck, JENNTREPECK. Website is asaladwithasideoffries.com. Pick your platform, send a message. I really just want to hear from you, your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me directly. And friends, if you are not already, join our membership by going to glow.fm/saladwithasideoffries. This shows your support for this podcast and this community, but most importantly, it truly supports your health. You'll get this week's recipes for Parmesan tahini kale salad with breadcrumbs and crunchy chickpeas, $20 off anything from Megan's Planner Shop, and your quarterly live Q&A, which is a one-on-one, just you and me. So until next week, remember that it's not that there isn't enough time in the day. It's not that you're a poor planner. Rather, it's simply time to shift our relationship with time and adopt an approach to time management that better fits our modern lives. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.